Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. I am Michael Wilkie. I'm the owner of Aspire Health and Fitness. And for today's video, I have a client and friend of mine here, Miss Melinda Corsino, as I know her, but her married name is Melinda Spencer. She hired me back in 2014, I think, to help her get ready for her first physique competition, specifically a bikini competition. And we are still working together today. This young lady has achieved quite a few things in her life, and I wanted to discuss that today with you guys and have her dispense some of the information, some of the systems that she has in place, some of the routines that she has in place. And by routines, I don't necessarily mean workout or anything like that, but just having a toddler, being married, a regular job, these types of things. What are the things that she does that allows her to be as successful as she does? And just to give you an idea of her resume, I have my notes here because I wanted to make sure I got this correct. So again, she hired me back in 2014, and she was the winner of multiple physique competitions, both in bikini and figure. She earned 2 pro cards doing that. She was heavily involved in powerlifting competitions, placed top 20, I think you said, in powerlifting competitions. Heavily involved in the CrossFit world and competing in those. She was a top finisher in obstacle course racing, the Spartan Race Series, and as a result, she was invited out to the World Championships in Utah, which is she did very well in. She's also a model. She had her own podcast for many years called Fit Talk with Melinda. I was actually on that show quite a few times. It was a great show. This is one of my favorites. She was a contestant on Stone Cold Steve Austin's show. I think it was called Broken Skull Ranch. That's just awesome, if you ask me. I want to hear more about that. She is an account administrative manager for the town of Lexington. She placed second in the national regional public speaking competition. I mean, it doesn't end for this young lady. She is also, she actually, to follow up on that, she was first place Cub Aryan Division Toastmaster public speaking competition, and then she competed in the district competition in front of 200 plus people at Bentley. So again, very impressive there. And then she's also the regional vice president for Arbonne as a result of being in the top 2% in the company. Again, and that's something you've only just recently started with in the past 2 years, is that correct? I
started getting heavily into it the past 2 years.
Past 2 years, again, super impressive to get up the ranks that quickly. She is married to Scott. She has a daughter who's not even 2, right?
She's a little over 2.
Little over 2 now, Giovanna, excuse me. And, oh, by the way, just because she wanted to see if she can do it, she applied to, interviewed with, and was accepted by the FBI. That's just crazy to me. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Melinda about all this today. And let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Always great talking with you. So, again, that's a heck of an impressive resume you have there. Obviously, I know a little bit more of the background than our viewers, but tell us a little bit why you have such a desire to achieve, because, again, you don't stop. My wife and I joke about you all the time, and it's like, where's this young lady's off button? She doesn't have one. Tell us where that comes from.
I started competing from a very young age in athletics. I was able to get a full Division I scholarship to play softball at college, and I think that it really started there. I have
University of Maine?
University of Maine, Orono, and I went there, graduated, never picked up a bat, ball, glove since the last game I played. I was so done. But I think, for me, I always live by say yes to an opportunity and then figure out how to do it later.
I like that.
So when these opportunities are things that arose in my life, whether it be a friend had a conversation with me about you should compete in a bikini show. I never thought about that before, but an opportunity arose and I said, I'm gonna say yes to this and then just figure out how to do it later. And we all know our friends talk us into stupid things like Spartan races and all those fun things. So I just don't say no to things that I think that are beneficial, whether it be athletically, academically, professionally. I won't say no to something and I will just figure it out.
And going back to the University of Maine, if I'm not mistaken, you have like 185 master's degrees or something like that. I mean, I know you have a ton. How many do you have?
I have 2 bachelor's degrees from the University of Maine,
yes.
One in developmental psychology and the other in women's studies, which is most like a sociology degree for those that don't know what that is. and I have 2 masters, one in criminal justice, criminal behavior, which is where the FBI came in, and then another, I have my MBA in finance, not from UNAM, but.
And I may have been mistaken, but I thought you were going for another one, but maybe that's not.
I was thinking about going for a doctorate, but that's not.
Maybe that's what I remember. Okay, maybe that's what
not
I was
an
recalling.
opportunity that I'm saying yes to at the moment.
So I want to break this down to a little bit into a couple of the segments of the things that you have achieved here. Let's start with how our relationship began, and that's with competition. Talk to me about that experience of competing, because for me, I've actually stepped away from that life for no other reason than it was just time for me to do that. For me, in my own personal life, as well as that of the type of client that I'm coaching, I found it to be very unattainable, and it was very rigid, very, all these types of things. And it was great. There was a ton of value in it for me, but I wanted to step away from it. I'm curious of your experience as far as why you stepped away from competition. And there's obviously been chatter, and obviously I know this to be true because you and I have talked about it. There was chatter about you getting back into it because somebody told you that you couldn't. And I got to tell you something, people. The one thing that you don't tell Melinda Corsino is that she can't do something, because she's going to prove you wrong. She's going to prove you wrong hard. So tell me about that.
I personally stepped away because I started to become interested in other things. And as we know, with competitions, it is a very narrow tunnel. There's no room for anything. You have your diet, you have your training routine, and you really can't sway either way. So it's a big lockdown on your life and a big commitment to do a show. And I loved it while I was doing it, but then I started to want to experience different things like OCR racing more competitively at that time, powerlifting, CrossFit, and it was very difficult to put focus on those things and also put focus on getting on stage. And at one point, I believe competing in figure, pro figure, which I was just not really lean enough for, and I contribute a lot of that to the training in things that I was doing while I was in prep, and realizing if I'm not, competing is very expensive. It's very expensive, and you want it to be expensive because you get what you pay for. But to put money into something that I wasn't competing competitively at, it just didn't make sense anymore.
Sure.
So I wanted to step away and experience other types of athletics.
And we had been working together for about 2 years at that point when you got your pro card in figure, if I'm not mistaken. And we both knew that it just wasn't for you anyway. You have a figure body. I mean, you have pound for pound more muscle than just about any other woman I've ever met. But that's not your mindset. Your mindset was definitely bikini, more the fashion, more the elegance, and those types of things. And so, the interest just wasn't there as well. But if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think I am, as we were getting to the end there of that first run, you were pretty much crawling across the finish line because you had been dieting straight for 2 years. Right. Then you had started doing the powerlifting. You had started doing the CrossFit. You were already doing the OCRs. And there's a lot of different things. And so when you're trying to do multiple things like that, it's 2 different styles of dieting and multiple styles of dieting. It's different styles of training and so on and so forth. So how did you deal with that? Because that's one of the things that I experience when I have new clients coming into me. It seems like they have a lot of different things going on and they want to be able to achieve all these types of things, but it's just not based on reality. How did you deal with that?
I am very good at being consistent and committed to something when I do it. So if I said I was going to do something, whether it be diet or whatever, I wouldn't be straying from that because I said that I was going to do that. Like, this is your macros for the day. And just because I decided to go run 10 miles for an OCR training, I was sticking to those macros. So it's just knowing that you can be consistent with whatever you're doing. It was very difficult, and which is why we ended up stepping away.
Now, as far as, this doesn't even have to be for somebody who is competing or anything like that, because as we know, 1% of 1% of 1% of the population actually does it. But there's still, you're focused on nutrition, you're focused on working out, you're focused on all these types of things. What were some of the things that you put in place? Because I think that there's, knowing you like I know you, you definitely you go to a different level that not a lot of people can get to. But at the end of the day, you are still a human being. And at the end of the day, you still get tired, you still fatigue, you still have other things going on. Now, back in those days, you didn't have your daughter, and it wasn't quite as crazy as it is today. But if you want to talk about back then, as well as now, as it relates to your diet and your training and being able to juggle, your full-time job, and I'm not even talking about Arbonne yet, but your full-time job and your family now, what are some of the things that you do? Because I know for a lot of people, it's they find it challenging to maintain that consistency when their mindset isn't where yours is pretty much all the time. What were some of those things that you would do when you were kind of burning out? How would you push through those challenging times of like, I just don't want to do this?
But when you do something consistently for a long period of time, it becomes ingrained in you, and it's very hard to sway in a different direction. So for anyone that is having trouble just getting up and going to the gym on a consistent basis, do it for 30 days. Because once you do it for 30 days, it becomes part of your normal routine, and you almost feel empty when you're not doing it. So it's just long term. I've always lived my life like this. I've always been pretty good with my diet. I mean, the college, freshman 15, we won't talk about, but I've always been good with my diet. I've always been interested in sports and competing and having that sort of lifestyle. So it's just something that's ingrained, and I feel very odd when I don't have to work out every day, but when I'm not staying on a diet, when I'm not going to work out, whatever that may be, when I'm not doing those things, it's odd to me. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. It's like not brushing your teeth.
Right. It has to be a routine. It has to be part of your everyday.
And so one of the things that I talk to a lot of my clients about is motivation, and a lot of clients will tell me that I'm just not motivated, or whatever the case might be. And one of the things that one of my mentors told me when we had a conversation about that, as far as being able to help clients through those periods of times when they're not as motivated as they want to be, the response that I got was, you do it the hell anyway. You don't, and that's been a huge lesson for me in all areas of life, and I think it's something that you probably implement with maybe not even realizing it, but action begets motivation. I think it's important that if we realize we don't have to be motivated to do anything. The example that I give my clients is, are you motivated to brush your teeth every day? Well, no, you do it still, but you're probably not always motivated. You're tired, whatever, you just want to get in bed or whatever the case might be, but you do it anyway. So talk to me about that, as far as, were there times for you when, and I heard what you said about it becomes a habit and so on and so forth, but I want to dig on a deeper level. You had to have days where you were just like, no, I don't want to do this. Were there days that you didn't do it, and how did you deal with it? And two, on those days where you felt like that, what did you do to push yourself mentally to do what you needed to do anyway? And did you find that maybe you still did your work in any of these things that you achieved, and maybe it wasn't what it would have normally been, but you still felt good doing at least some of it?
Yes, so you know me. There's not a lot of days that I don't do something, whatever my plan is for the day. It might be when I'm sick, and then it's okay, your body's telling you to rest, you need a day off, you need to rest. I am definitely not motivated every day, and I didn't know this back in the day, but I think it's what I was actually doing. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mel Robbins or the 5-Second Rule, the book. And in her book, to sum it up in one sentence, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then go do it. So if you're waking up in the morning, instead of hitting the snooze button, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed.
I love that.
And you have to sometimes force yourself to do what you know you should be doing, and then afterwards you always feel so much better. So it's knowing the end result. It's knowing that I don't want to go to the gym today. I'm tired, but I really don't have a legitimate excuse. I'm not sick. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to do it, because when you leave, it's almost a better sense of accomplishment, because you know how much you didn't want to step foot in that gym. Yeah. And so I think that's how I've always kind of lived it by, and didn't know there was a book about it until years later.
And I love that. I mean, I absolutely love that. For me, it's I actually cuss myself. I'm up every day at 4 a.m. even on Saturdays, and it's usually not a problem for me. I've just been doing it for 23 years, but there are certainly days where I'm just like, and I'm slamming the alarm, and that's a hard and fast rule for me. There is no snooze button. I get up, and that's what it is. But there are times when I have to get a little aggressive with myself and say, get up and let's do this, and so on and so forth. But I love that, as well, what you said about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that we again, it goes back to what I said. We feel like we have to be motivated all the time in order for us to do anything, and it's just not the case. If we are always living on that high, we're going to find it's going to be super difficult to achieve anything. This is easy when we're up here to do anything and everything. It's down here, that's where the paychecks come in. That's where the results in the gym come in. That's where, the family life, whatever, all those types of things. It's when you're down here and you force yourself to do it anyway, That's where the success is going to come from. I cannot stress that enough. And there was something else I was going to say on that I can't remember. But what I want to talk about too is that balance for you in terms of all of these things that you have to do. This is a huge thing that a huge action exercise that I have my clients do in terms of preparation. All of these things that you were trying to achieve, because as we already articulated, you were training for competition, for physique competition, plus all the dieting. You were training for powerlifting, you were training for CrossFit, and you were training for all OCR. I think it's a fair statement to say that there was a period of time, even if it was very brief, that you were training for essentially all three pretty much at the same time. So that's a lot of different things going on. How do you ensure, what are some of the things that you do to ensure that you get all of that done each and every week?
Well, the training for all of those things at once sounds like it's a little bit more than it is, because a lot of things cross over. CrossFit heavily crosses over into powerlifting, vice versa. Running for an OCR race heavily crosses over with potential cardio for a show. So there's a lot of crossover in what's happening. I will say, when I was doing all the things at once, I wasn't doing everything really great. I was just doing them all.
And that's another lesson.
I wasn't standing out in any one category. Bodybuilding started to go down a little bit for me as far as what I was able to do. And then I was competing like locally in CrossFit just for fun. Powerlifting, I hadn't competed nationally yet. In OCR, to me, that's just running and stamina. And because I'm stubborn, I won't say the word on here. I can push myself mentally easily, or I say easier than I would say some people.
Yep.
So OCR wasn't as hard for me, because it's just like you're just in a mental state. You just have to go do it. So it wasn't good to train all at once, but I'm very scheduled, very, very type A, very scheduled, and I plan out my days and my weeks in advance when I'm training when.
When do you do that? Like, do you do it on Sunday night?
No,
do you do it?
It's like done a month in advance.
A month in advance?
Not the specific workouts that are going to be done, but what my schedule is going to look like. Okay, these are the days, this is my work schedule, these are the days that I'll be doing X, Y, and Z at the gym or for training purposes. This is what my diet is. I got that from you. And so it's done in advance, and then I have to tweak it per week.
And staying on because I think preparation in anything that we do is just perhaps one of the most important things that we can do as individuals. Talk to me about, and what I'd like to do here is try to start transitioning away from the idea of competition and all these other types of things, but still talking about meal prep, because that's obviously a big thing. We're all super busy. Again, it goes back to that motivation factor. What do I want to make for dinner tonight that's healthy? Am I making sure that I have meals ready to go the next day, so on and so forth? For me, I have all of my breakfast items set out on the counter the night before. I take it a step further. I actually lay all my clothes out in the order that I'm going to put them on in the morning, because I don't want to think. It's automatic, it's rote, it's just no confusion, blood pressure doesn't go up, so on and so forth. As far as like preparation stuff like that for you, specifically around the nutrition side of things, what are some of the practices that you have in place today that allow you to stay on point with your diet and whatever the case might be?
Now, since I'm not competing, things are a little bit different, a little bit easier. I am very lazy with food prep. I do not like cooking in advance. Everyone on Instagram with their Sunday night prepping and the seasoning and all, and putting it into the little containers, that's not for me. I used to do that. It's not for me. I don't enjoy it. I think it's a waste of time for myself now where I am. But what I do is pre-buy food in advance. So if I go grocery shopping on Saturday, and I'll know what I need for the week, whether it be chicken, vegetables, eggs, Ezekiel bread, and I will pack the night before when I go to work. So I don't meal prep everything in my fridge like a lot of people do, but planning ahead, and then making sure you have healthy options always available, whether they be at the fridge at home. I happen to work in an office. It's conducive to making my diet a little bit easier. I have a fridge there. I stock that with food. So I have food at home, food in my office fridge, food that I travel with, and it's just making sure you always have those options so you're not tempted to derail. And
I have the very same thing. I have the exact same thing, set up in my situation. I want to touch on something though. Would you say that the meal prep, going back to your competition days, I know I said I want to transition away, but I think there's a point here. Were you doing that back in you had the Tupperware on Sunday night and everything was, so that's the point that I want to make. And this is the point that I talk with on some of my clients who are doing some modeling, some of my clients, I have a couple of clients who are still finishing up some competitions and stuff. And I always tell them, I want there to be a clear distinction between contest dieting and preparation and then just living a healthy lifestyle. And that's why you're saying now you had to step away from that because you just found it to be too rigid, too much structure, if you will, and it just wasn't working for you in living in today's world, in your situation.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So what I want to talk to you about now is some of the things that you've had going on more recently. You had the birth of your 2-year-old daughter, Giovanni. That's fantastic. That obviously changes a lot of things. You were married. I think I actually just saw you had your 6-year anniversary come up.
Yep.
And I think that's an important topic if we can touch on that as well, as far as the type of support that you have. Now I know Scott, and I know that he's involved in a lot of those things that you guys are doing. Talk to me about what that looks like as far as like that family dynamic and that structure, all the things that you're doing today. How do you do that, having a full-time job, having a toddler, being married? What type of support system do you have in place for that?
Well, I think it's very important. I'm not a marriage counselor, but I think it's very important that each person in the relationship has something that they do, that they enjoy doing, and that they can separate themselves but also be supportive of that other person and what they want. It's very hard in a relationship to one person is doing all of the competing and all of the things, and the other person doesn't really have something that's theirs, whatever that may be. It could be competitive chess playing. It doesn't have to be athletics, but they don't have something. So for Scott and I, we met running. We met doing OCR racing together, and then that branched off from there. He's always been extremely supportive, as you know, in anything that I've wanted to compete in. But in addition to that, I mean, he does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a blue belt. He's competed before, so he has his own outlets.
So he understands what's involved.
So he understands what's involved in competing at a level in anything. And then it's just a lot of communication and compromise as far as I was a nighttime gym goer for years. Had to go to the gym at night.
Yeah.
Once we had Giovanna, we can't go to the gym at the same time anymore, clearly. So I wake up, not at 4 a.m, but around 5:30. I wake up and go to the gym in the morning. I hate it. I still hate it. But I force myself to get up and I force myself to go because I know I feel better after. That's my gym time, and his gym time is at night.
Yeah.
It's making sure that everyone's prioritized.
And I had forgotten something earlier that I wanted to say, but I remember it now, and you just reminded me. Has there ever been a time where you've gone to the gym in the morning when you're like, oh, God almighty, I just don't want to do that? Has there ever been a time where you've been halfway through your workout and you said, I'm so mad that I came today? Never. Ever. It doesn't happen. You actually feel better, and it sets a great tone for the day. So it really is getting yourself over that sticking point, that hump, forcing yourself to get, and what you'll find too, and I'm sure you'll agree, and you may have already referenced it, but the more you force yourself to do that, the easier it becomes. It's not such a challenge to get up first thing in the morning, or on the reverse is to go at the end of the day, right? It becomes the habit, it becomes routine, so on and so forth. A couple more things I wanted to talk to you about today. So talk to me about when Pamela my wife was the one who actually told me this, that you were doing this, and of course I just laughed because I know you. She came in and she saw a post that Melinda had made on social media, and when she said this, I just literally went #random, and that's the public speaking. I know you pretty well, and we've never had a conversation about you doing public speaking. So when she's telling me you're doing this, and then I'm following your journey along, and I actually watched, I think just about anything you posted on it. I know you posted your final speech, so on and so forth. Where the hell did that come from? Again, just let me see if I can do this?
That was one of those things where an opportunity arose and I didn't say no, and I wanted to say no really bad because I was never scared of public speaking, but I hadn't done it at that level before, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking, and I ended up taking a management course through work, and the instructor has been in Toastmasters for almost 20 years probably. If you don't know what Toastmasters is, it's a worldwide public speaking and management organization. They're all around the world, these clubs. And there's competitions that you can enter. And I was approached, we chartered a club in the town that I work in, and I was part of that club, and I was approached with, you should compete. I did a speech just for fun, just as part of the curriculum, and one of our mentors in the audience said, you should compete with that. And I went, okay, sure.
And Scott rolled his eyes, not something else.
And then I did it anyway. So then I competed. I won my club competition, won I'm probably doing this in the wrong order, won the area competition, won the division competition. I was shocked the entire way through. I actually went into every competition going, this is going to be fun, it's going to be a learning experience, and I'm probably going to lose.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. That's totally fine.
Sure.
And then I kept winning, and I went, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to compete at Bentley University.
And remind me, what was the topic of your final speech?
The speech was Strong is Beautiful,
Yes.
and it was about competing
Yes.
and being a woman, and,
yep.
and all of those
Yeah, it was
things that
very
go
good.
along with that.
It was very good, and something that hits close to home for you.
I was talking about myself,
Yeah, exactly.
which made it easy
Yeah.
to describe everything, but
Sure.
it was good.
Sure. So a couple more minutes here. Just because I'm so fascinated by it again. Although I knew what was going on here because you and I were having conversations. Tell me about your experience with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And just that whole being on a show and...
Yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't as crazy as I think people might think about being on a reality TV show, because my reality TV show was one episode, so it wasn't a series where I was living in a house for 3 months.
Sure.
It was one episode, and one of my friends, again, friends talk us into doing stupid things, emailed me and said, here's a link, you should apply to be on this show. I applied, got accepted, and went up to LA to be on the show. And if you haven't seen the show, we're in California, but it looks like we're in Texas on a ranch, and you're competing one-on-one against other girls.
And what were some of the things that, I know what was going on, but what were some of the things that you were doing? What were some of the events, if you will?
The only event that I did is we jumped into a water pit, this long, skinny water pit, and we had to run and kind of wrestle each other and try to get to the other side and hit the bell. The other girl ended up winning. Fantastic. It was a good experience.
And a couple of our mutual acquaintances, they would... Did I hear that Melinda was on Stone Cold? And I said, yeah. And they said, what does she have to do? And I said, basically just beat the crap out of each other. And I think they did it in mud or sand or water or something like that. So,
yeah, it was fun. And when we were out there, it was a crazy experience, being picked up in the vans and having to go through all the security and things. And then when we got to the site to film the show, the whole media crew went on strike. So we were stuck in this trailer, and it wasn't like a luxurious multi-million-dollar trailer like you see in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Stuck in this trailer eating peanut butter and snacks all day because that's all we had. And we ended up being out there for multiple days longer than we were supposed to because they had to bring in a new film crew. So the whole thing was crazy.
Yeah. Oh, that is crazy. Talk to me about your daughter.
Giovanna is a little over 2 now. And she's doing
Those
doing
eyeballs,
great.
my goodness.
She's doing awesome.
She's gonna be a little model, huh?
Yeah, she's so cute. Talking and running around.
No, I assume you're obviously, even though she's younger, teaching her healthy habits. I think that's so important at a young age. There are a lot of mothers out there, who are watching this and they have young ones and so on and so forth. I am, knowing you like I know you, I'm confident enough to know you are not having her eat like a bodybuilder, but what are some tips that you have for those moms out there when it comes to the health and fitness of their children? And by health and fitness, I don't mean what it is that we're doing, but just as we know there is a problem with childhood obesity and so on and so forth. What are the things that you're doing, to teach your daughter even at this young age?
It's just being a role model. We have some crap in the house, we're human, and I don't believe in not having an Oreos or a bag of chips in the house or something that's a treat, because you can't live restricted all the time. But Scott and I eat, and she eats how we eat. So we're not perfect, but we eat very well, and what we have in the house is what we have in the house.
Sure.
And there's no option for her to grab anything different.
Yeah.
She still gets all the childhood treats. We get the cake pops at Starbucks,
Sure.
and we have some fun, but just if you're eating this, they are mimicking what you're eating.
Exactly.
And they don't know any better until they get older and
Yeah.
experience what other kids' households are like. So she has no choice, but she still gets hurt.
And she's super active, and I saw her video recently. She's in her little dance class, and
Dance class.
that's good. Yeah,
and
starting the
she'll
exercise
start
early.
jujitsu at 5.
Sure. So, and then the final topic I wanted to discuss with you is perhaps even more random than the public speaking and all that. Talk to me about the FBI. You told me about that some time ago. You came into my office and you had this little smirk on your face when you were telling me about it. I was like, what? So talk to me about where that came from. I know you said you had the criminal justice background, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I've worked in the government in finance related jobs ish for a number of years, and I saw a posting on LinkedIn when COVID just hit that had job openings for the FBI. Now granted, it was not exactly what I thought it was going to be per the posting, But I said, you know what are the chances? I have a master's in finance and I have a master's in criminal justice. I might as well just give it a shot. Who knows what can happen? And I put in my resume and ended up getting contacted, and that was last year. And I can't obviously talk about the process,
Sure.
but it was a long process. It was many months long with a number of different types of testing, etc. And I did end up getting the job. And I did end up turning it down. And I think it would have been a very cool opportunity, but unfortunately they do make you move, and this is public knowledge, so I can talk about it. They make you move, and you don't ever get placed in the office you processed out of, so we would have had to move for a minimum of 3 years. And there was also a potential that they would have taken my Arbonne business from me, pending what they'll allow you to do based on their stipulations, and that I wasn't willing to give up either. So
Yeah, and actually I do applaud. That is one last thing I want to talk about. Thank you for reminding me. I think of everything, and I would expect nothing less from you because of what I know from you. But I think perhaps the thing that's most impressive with everything else I know that you have going on, for you to be able to do what you've done with Arbonne and so on and so forth. So I'm assuming that came from an opportunity, somebody prevented you, come to a meeting, so on and so forth. And obviously I see your social media post and you're talking about these different products and so on and so forth, and I see the quality of those posts. I see the enthusiasm in which you're talking about these products and services and so on and so forth. But for you to be in the top 2%, maybe I'm wrong, but that just seems pretty impressive for you to do it in the relatively short amount of time that you've been a part of that company. It would make sense for you to have done that, but is that kind of fast?
It's not, I've been involved with Arbonne for 5 years, but I didn't seriously start looking at it as a business opportunity until about 2.5 years into that.
Okay.
So I've been involved in the company for a while.
So what about it? Why Arbonne? Why do you?
I did get sucked into going to something. I was being a good friend, and I started using the products. We have 450 products, health and wellness products, strict ingredient policy, blah blah blah, all good stuff. But I liked the products. I started with skincare. I liked what I was using, and I just knew that I was going to continue to use things, so I wanted a discount.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up starting my business. And then
I've actually heard from a lot of people that's the way it goes.
It is. I was very heavily against multi-level marketing and network marketing until I really developed an understanding and a learning to how brilliant the business opportunity of network marketing can be with a reputable, good company, not a pyramid scheme, not a crappy company, but like a good company, and we've been around for 41 years.
Yeah.
So I felt safe in exploring that, and it's consistency. It's doing something consistent for a long period of time and not giving up when things get hard. And a lot of people, this with Arbonne or anything, they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they can do. Why can't you? You're not any different than, we are all born. You can do it. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it and be consistent over a long period of time, and good things happen. Yeah. So that's what happened with Arbonne.
And you're finally getting into my closing segment here, and I thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you found a ton of value in today's conversation. But to ensure that people leave with that, and you just started getting into that, continue on with that line of thinking. As far as I really want our viewers to get a sense of, what are some of the things, what are some tangible actions, what are some, thought processes, these types of things that they can take away from your own life where, you've achieved quite a few things, in a relatively shorter period of time. You're not even 40. 33, yeah. So you're barely 30. So, what would you say to somebody who is not at that level you are, as far as trying to achieve all these things, but maybe they want to get a shape, or maybe they want to look for a new business opportunity? Do you have 2 or 3 tips, ideas, big ideas, motivations that you can provide?
Believe in yourself. Like, you would not talk negatively to a friend that was trying to pursue something, and be a supportive, kind person to your friend. So talk to yourself like you would talk to your friend, and be kind to yourself. Believe that you can do it, because you can. There's no difference between you and anyone else. And when you decide to do something and make that decision, stay consistent with it for 30 days before you decide to quit. Longer if possible, but at least 30 days before you decide to give up on what you're doing.
Yeah. And then maybe perhaps the most important tip to give them is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Just do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So. Well, I thank you guys for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and post Melinda's information in the show notes. I assume that's okay with you, to be able to reach out, ask her questions. For any of you who do have questions, I'm sure you are able to repost your talk for the public speaking. Yeah, I think that's super powerful. And I think if you, especially for women, if you dig between the layers, even though she's talking about competition and so on and so on, I think it can apply to a lot of different areas of life, so on and so forth. So as always, I hope you guys found value in today's conversation. If you guys have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be in the show notes as well. Until next time, have a great day.